The Six Wives of Henry VIII, Catherine of Aragon. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Some time ago, I began the consideration of the analysis of the six wives of Henry VIII, as many of you had asked me to look at historical figures. Other matters got in the way, but now I've been able to access my material and provide you with an analysis as to make a determination under the Tudor scope as to what Catherine of Aragon is. Remember, for the purposes of my classification, we have a foundation assessment as to whether the individual is a narcissist, narcissistic, but not a narcissist, a normal, or an empath. And those of you who are accustomed to my work have come to understand what each classification denotes. Catherine of Aragon, the first wife of King Henry VIII of England, remains one of the most enduring figures in Tudor history. Born in 1485 as the youngest daughter of the formidable Spanish monarchs Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabel I of Castile, she navigated a life marked by royal duty, personal tragedy, and unyielding resolve. Her story is one of triumph and heartbreak, from her early betrothal to England as a symbol of alliance through her brief marriage to Prince Arthur, her long union with Henry VIII, and her defiant stand against the annulment that reshaped English religion and politics. But beyond the historical narrative, this video seeks to examine Catherine through my framework. As you know, the empath is an individual who is able to feel and share other emotions. Narcissists, some, have cognitive empathy, the intellectual understanding of emotions without feeling them. Empaths possess abundant emotional empathy, often prioritizing other people's needs, making them vulnerable to exploitation. Normals have a healthy balance of both of those empathies, allowing for reciprocal relationships. Narcissistic individuals exhibit low emotional empathy and, in some instances, demonstrate high cognitive empathy and will use it to manipulate for personal gain, while retaining some capacity for genuine interaction. Narcissists lack emotional empathy entirely, viewing others as simply appliances. To determine where she fits, I'm going to look at historical sources. I'm going to draw on biographies, contemporary accounts, scholarly analyses. I'm going to explore her piety, diplomacy, stubbornness, compassion, and resilience with notable examples. Naturally, it's a nuanced, evidence-based evaluation because we are looking at her retroactively. We naturally can't see her as it happened, but as we look back upon it and we look at the behavioural patterns from the available evidence to make the determination. Catherine's life was shaped by her royal upbringing in Spain, where she witnessed her parents' Reconquista, the expulsion of Muslim rulers from the Iberian Peninsula, and absorbed a rigorous education that blended intellectual pursuits with Catholic devotion. Educated by Alessandro Gialdini, she mastered languages, Latin, French, Greek and Spanish, theology, philosophy, and domestic arts like embroidery and music. Erasmus of Rotterdam praised her as having loved good literature, which she had studied with success since childhood. This intellectual foundation influenced her later patronage of humanist scholars like Thomas More and Juan Luis Vives, whom she commissioned to create educational plans for her daughter Mary. At age 3, Catherine was betrothed to Arthur, Prince of Wales, as part of an Anglo-Spanish alliance against France. She arrived in England in 1501, marrying Arthur that November in a lavish ceremony at St. Paul's Cathedral. Their union was short-lived. Arthur died in April 1502, possibly from sweating sickness. Catherine maintained that the marriage was never consummated, a claim central to later events, testifying under oath that she remained a virgin. Widowed at 16, she endured 7 years of uncertainty, living in relative poverty while her father and father-in-law Henry VII haggled over her dowry. During this period, she demonstrated resilience and diplomatic acumen, serving as the first known female ambassador in European history in 1507, negotiating on behalf of her father with Henry VII. This role showcased her intelligence, her resilience, her poise. She handled complex political discussions, proving her capability in a male-dominated sphere. In 1509, shortly after Henry VIII's accession, Catherine married him in a private ceremony at Greenwich Palace. Their early marriage was harmonious. Henry described her as the most dear wife in letters, and they were crowned together at Westminster Abbey. Catherine's behaviours during this time reflected devotion and partnership. She influenced foreign policy, advocating for alliances with her nephew, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, and supported Henry's ambitions. A notable example was in 1513 when Henry invaded France. Appointed regent with the titles Governor of the Realm and Captain General, Catherine managed domestic affairs amid a Scottish threat. Pregnant at the time, she rode north in full armour to rally troops, delivering a stirring speech on English courage and patriotism. She exhorted them to defend their country, their wives and children against the barbarous Scots, it was recorded. The resulting English victory at the Battle of Flodden, where King James IV of Scotland was killed, was a triumph. Catherine sent Henry a blooded piece of James's coat as a trophy, symbolising her warrior spirit. Catherine's compassion was evident in her charitable acts. She allocated about 5% of her income to the poor, distributing alms and clothing, and initiated relief programs during economic hardships. In 1517, during the evil May Day riots against foreign merchants, she appealed to Henry for mercy on the rebels' behalf, citing the plight of their families, a move that saved many lives and earned her public admiration. Thomas Cromwell later noted, if not for her sex, she could have defied all the heroes of history, highlighting her leadership potential. However, her marriage faltered owing to the lack of a male heir. Catherine endured 6 pregnancies, a stillborn daughter, 1510, Prince Henry, 1511, who died 52 days, a stillborn son in 1513, another stillborn son in 1514, Mary, 1516, who survived, and a stillborn daughter, 1518. She coped with these losses through faith, fasting and prayer. But Henry grew disillusioned, turning to mistresses like Elizabeth Blunt and Mary Boleyn. Catherine initially turned a blind eye to his infidelities, maintaining dignity as a true, humble, and obedient wife, as she later proclaimed. By 1525, Henry's obsession with Anne Boleyn intensified his desire for annulment, arguing their marriage violated Leviticus 20:21, prohibiting marriage to a brother's widow, and was cursed by God with no sons. Catherine's response was unyielding. She refused to retire to a nunnery, insisting the marriage was valid and consummated only with Henry. At the 1529 Blackfriars trial, she knelt before Henry, delivering an emotional plea. I have been your true wife for more than 20 years, and when ye had me at first, I take God to my judge. I was a true maid without touch of man. She then dramatically exited, ignoring calls to return, showcasing her theatrical flair and resolve. Banished from court in 1531, Catherine lived in isolation at residences like the Moor and Kimbolton Castle, separated from Mary. She rejected the title Dowager Princess of Wales, signing letters as Queen and maintaining a small court. Her behaviours revealed stubborn pride. She dismissed servants who addressed her incorrectly and fasted excessively, worsening her health. Despite offers of better treatment if she conceded, she refused, prioritising her principles and Mary's legitimacy. Contemporary accounts note her single-mindedness. She held grudges, such as against a maid who married without permission, and rejected her former tutor years later. Yet she remained loyal to faithful servants, recommending them in letters and bequeathing extra wages in her will. Catherine died on January 7, 1536, likely from cancer, as embalmers found a black growth on her heart. Rumours of poisoning by Anne Boleyn persisted, but historians dismissed them. In her final letter to Henry, she forgave him, urging care for Mary and expressing love. Lastly, I make this vow, that mine eyes desire you above all things. This poignant act underscored her enduring devotion and betrayal. Catherine's behaviours also included diplomatic dissimulation. She was capable of diplomatic lies, as noted by historians, to advance her interests, such as during negotiations in her widowhood. She opposed peaceful overtures like the 1520 Field of Cloth of Gold, openly disliking the French alliance, and showed sympathy for her widowed sister-in-law, Margaret of Scotland, after Flodden, sending condolences despite the victory. Overall, verified sources portrayed Catherine as pious, intelligent, compassionate, resilient, and proud. Her actions, from leading armies to charitable works, demonstrate a blend of strength and vulnerability, influenced by her faith and royal duty. Where might we find that Catherine of Aragon falls? I provided you with an overall summary rather than go through each and every piece of evidence that I have considered in order to maintain some brevity. You'll recall that with the empath, they exhibit high emotional empathy. There is cognitive empathy alongside it, but emotional empathy prevails. Empaths have the ability to feel that of others. They often prioritize others' needs over their own, making them givers in relationships. They exhibit compassion, loyalty, forgiveness, vulnerability to manipulation, a strong moral compass. They often thrive in supportive roles, but can be drained by toxic dynamics. They advocate for justice and charity. Normals have a balance of emotional and cognitive empathy. There is emotional empathy, but it tends to be for a smaller circle of individuals, which is framed by self-interest. They form reciprocal relationships. There's reliability, fairness, occasional self-focus without exploitation. They tend to navigate society more healthily than the empath, avoiding extremes of sacrifice or domination. The narcissistic individual has low emotional empathy, high cognitive empathy. These individuals rarely feel the emotions, but are not completely devoid of them, and are more manipulative. They show a greater degree of self-centeredness, entitlement, the application of charm for gain. There is capacity for real bonds, but it can often be tainted by manipulative self-interest. In relationships, they often seek admiration. They don't have the pathological need for control of the narcissist. They'll often pursue status without full detachment. The narcissist, of course, has no emotional empathy. Some have cognitive empathy. There is the pursuit of the prime aims. We see grandiosity, a lack of remorse, exploitation, ignited fury when challenged, the objectification of people. Society is a stage for dominance. Relationships are transactional. Katherine exhibited strong emotional empathy through compassionate acts. Her appeals for mercy during the evil May Day riots, when she interceded for rebels' families, demonstrated noting and feeling other people's suffering, a hallmark of the empath. She begged the king to pardon them for the sake of their wives and children, as chronicled, showing prioritization of collective welfare over punitive justice. Similarly, her charitable programs, distributing arms and clothing to the poor, reflect genuine concern, not mere obligation or grandstanding. It's the case that empaths often engage in altruism, draining themselves for others. Catherine's 5% income allocation fits this, as does her patronage of education for women, commissioning Viva's work for Mary's humanist upbringing. Her devotion to Henry suggests considerable empathic loyalty, and quite possibly the presence of the addiction to the narcissist. Despite his infidelities, she remained true and obedient, although we must consider, of course, that it was something that was much more acceptable for a king to take mistresses, and that marriage was invariably done for status, the securing of the country by way of a male heir, the creation of alliances, the avoidance of war, the maintenance of peace, and was much more transactional than it is today. It is important to bear that in mind, that the king's marriage was invariably not for love, but was on the basis of its practicality. And the king would take mistresses for the fact of personal pleasure and companionship. Nevertheless, notwithstanding this transactional nature, and the existence of the infidelities, she remained true and obedient, forgiving him in her deathbed letter. "I do forgive you with all my heart." This forgiveness aligns with the empathic tendency to overlook faults. But it also shows balance. She didn't enable endlessly. She fought for her rights. Her early marital harmony, where she advised Henry diplomatically, indicates mutual respect and not complete one-sided giving. Her compassion wasn't boundless. She showed sympathy for Margaret of Scotland post-Flodden, sending condolences despite victory, revealing emotional depth. There is some practicality there that would be seen with the normal, but there is the empathy also. She used empathy strategically in diplomacy, like an ambassador, blending it with cognitive understanding. Her unyielding refusal of annulment highlights stubbornness and pride, which is a more narcissistic trait. She rejected the dowager title, signing as queen, and dismissed disloyal servants holding grudges like against her maid or tutor. Cromwell called her proud and intractable, warning she could lead rebellion. This single-mindedness might be seen to mirror the narcissistic need for control and status. Her diplomatic lies during widowhood negotiations fit this, that she was using intellect to advance interests without emotional regard. In relationships, her dramatic Blackfriars plea, kneeling, asserting virginity, then exiting, shows theatricality, which could be linked to the narcissist's grandiosity and searching for fuel. Her excessive fasting and isolation could well indicate self-focus, prioritizing principles over well-being, akin to the inflexibility of the narcissist. But then again, self-imposed isolation would militate against the necessity of the need for fuel. It's interesting, though, to note that her pride also stemmed from faith and duty, not exploitation. She fought for Mary's legitimacy out of maternal love, not personal gain. Catherine expressed no remorse for her stance, but forgave Henry, demonstrating emotional capacity. Her resilience, enduring widowhood, poverty, pregnancy losses suggests empathic strength rather than narcissistic rage. As regent, Catherine's Flodden leadership, rallying troops in armour, sending the bloodied coat, demonstrates the necessity of understanding morale needs, possibly an extension of emotional empathy. Her actions secured England's stability, enhancing her status. Influencing Henry against France, favouring Charles V, shows some strategic manipulation. But again, was this born out of a love for the country of England and its people? Her emotional empathy does shine. Her patriotic speech evoked shared emotion, and post-victory sympathy for Margaret indicates the feeling of loss. As ambassador, she negotiated fairly, not deceptively for pure self-interest. Empaths lead compassionately, normals more pragmatically. Her intellectual patronage, supporting More and Erasmus, reflects genuine interest in others' growth as opposed to fuel-seeking. Invariably, the narcissist dominates destructively. Catherine built alliances. She didn't destroy them. Catherine's piety, daily mass, penance, confession, integrated with queenship as she saw duty through faith. She's morally driven. Her refusal of annulment, citing divine law, fits this, sacrificing comfort for belief. She integrated religion humanely, criticising church flaws without reformist zeal. Narcissists would feign piety for control. It's clear that with Catherine, her piety was authentic, evidenced by lifelong consistency, sustained behaviour over a sustained period of time. Her deathbed forgiveness exhibits emotional empathy, not a narcissistic lack of remorse. Catherine exhibits compassionate charity, resilient leadership, stubborn defiance, diplomatic strategy. She embodies strong empathic tendencies. She has high emotional empathy, mercy pleas, forgiveness, which also has some cognitive use, diplomacy and regency. Whilst she may not have been seen to be overly sacrificial, she was still somebody that experienced a deep-seated emotional empathy for other people. She prioritised duty and others, her daughter, the poor, without full self-negation. She maintained some self-interest in her queenship claim. Some examples, like Blackfriars and Flodden, show dramatic resolve, but it was rooted in genuine emotional empathy, not grandiosity. Most definitely, narcissistic traits are evident by virtue of the pride and the grudges that she exhibited, but these are found, of course, with the empath. But there's a lack of exploitation. There's an absence of an empathy void. She felt deeply, as in Pregnancy, Grief, and Final Letter. She wasn't a narcissist, for she did not demonstrate that pathological need for control, the overriding grandiosity, an absence of emotional empathy, a lack of accountability for her behaviours. Nor could she be said to be narcissistic, for the emotional empathy was too great to fit within that categorization. Normal is a consideration, but overall, it is the extent of her emotional empathy moulded with a self-discipline and resilience that ultimately finds her placed within the category of empath. Catherine of Aragon is an empath. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.